This is Classic Cinema with the Sage Sisters. My name's Lucinda Sage Midgord, and I'm the oldest sister.
I'm Celeste Sage Tate. I am the youngest of four siblings.
Yes, and the others love movies too, but for some reason, it's just Celeste and me. So today I think is episode 6, and we are talking about Inherit the Wind.
I
I'm
might be
from 1960 with Frederick March, Spencer Tracy, and Gene Kelly in a serious role. Well, semi-serious because he jokes a lot. But so this is one of our all-time favorite movies, and here's the description of the movie. Based on a real life case in 1925, two great lawyers argue the case for and against a Tennessee science teacher accused of the crime of teaching Darwin's theory of evolution. So that it is based on a real the Scopes trial is what it was called, and it was called the trial of the century. And a lot of the dialogue that goes on in the courtroom scenes is from actual testimony. So what do you want to say about this movie? There's so much to say about this movie.
Well, the trial happened in 1925.
Right.
And as I was beginning to watch the movie, both the kids, my children, went 1925. And what we're going through not right now, 100 years later, 2020, they were amazed by that. They were like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They couldn't believe it's been like 100 years since this whole thing happened.
Yeah.
And a community trying to control education.
Yes.
I mean, it's much broader than that, obviously. Um, Very, very heavy-handed with, um, it's the Bible Belt where it was
Right.
taking place,
Right.
and very heavy-handed in wanting them to be able to pray and teach the Bible in schools, but nothing else, uh,
Right.
other than the basics of education. Your
Mhm.
reading, your writing, your math. Very much wanting to control the narrative. And
Yeah.
one teacher, in his science class, decides to buck the system.
Right.
And and you find out in this movie there's a series of events that happened that I think brought him to this point.
Yes, actually, I did read about this some time back and about the trial,
Yep.
not just about the movie. Uh, the ACLU wanted to challenge that new law in Tennessee that said you couldn't teach uh, Darwin's theory of evolution. And so they found him, and he was willing to teach it and
Teach it.
break the
Yeah.
law so that
Right.
hopefully it would go up to the Supreme Court. That's not what happened. Unfortunately, there were
Unfortunately.
some irregularities in the trial. I think it was in the discovery or something on the prosecution side. There
Right.
were some problems and so it didn't go to the Supreme Court. But that was their goal. The
Well,
ACLU.
and the simple fact is, you learn towards the end of the movie that it was getting a lot of attention across
Oh
the
yes.
country. And uh, they did not expect that to happen.
Mm-mm,
I
mm-mm.
think that they thought they could just keep it in their little bubble,
Right.
and it didn't stay in the bubble because of the two men who were defense and the prosecuting were
Right.
very well known in politics and or the law.
Now,
So
I did not write down their names.
Henry
Uh,
Drummond and Matthew Brady.
no,
Drummond and
I
Brady.
didn't write down the names of the real people, of the real.
Oh, the real names? Yeah. I didn't either. Oh, I
Um,
should have thought to do that. Yeah.
yeah,
Because yeah, they were well known. And the series of events may not be exactly super timely and exact the timeline
mm-hmm.
on what happens, but I mean, it gets the point across, which is
Oh yeah.
the part. And the directing, let's please mention Stanley Kramer.
Oh man, yeah.
A very powerful, he could tell stories.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to
Stanley Kramer is amazing.
at some point we're going to talk about another Stanley Kramer Spencer Tracy uh collaboration
Yes.
with it's called Guess Who's Coming to
This is
Dinner.
coming.
At some point we're going to talk about that one too. But
Yeah.
one of the very first things I remember when I was rewatching it, or when I was thinking about when I was rewatching it, was, isn't it interesting that they use Give Me That Old Time Religion
Oh yes.
as their theme song?
Yes.
And if you listen to the song, they are talking about David and Jonah, all these Old
Yeah.
Testament
Old
people.
Testament people. Yeah.
And they're not talking about the
No,
Christian
no, not.
you know, doctrines at all.
But yet that is their, that's how they're thumping that Bible, is the old time religion and the Old Testament. But
Mm-hmm.
Old Testament isn't about Christianity at all,
No,
which is
no.
so interesting. And once we get to some of these scenes, but there's other things that happen in the movie that are so powerful, which is the burning of the effigy, and they're marching down the street
Yes.
with their signs, and they're really
Right.
mad at Spencer Tracy's character and how he's,
Yeah.
defending this teacher and the things that he's
Yeah.
challenging with,
Right.
calling him the,
The
a prophet of the devil, and
right. All
all
this,
of these
yeah.
things, when really all he's doing is challenging is everything in the Bible to be taken
Literally.
as okay. Like, he's challenging, what does 7 days really mean?
Right.
You know,
Which we're going to get to see that
we got
scene.
to
Yeah.
get down to that, of course. But of course, we know this on the outside looking in, and the objective part of it is, when you challenge people and they start to behave the way that they did, that's fear based.
Yeah, it is.
People don't want what they think is their foundation and their ideology challenged. And as
Right.
soon as you challenge it, it's amazing how opposite, I mean, they behave completely the opposite of Christians,
Right.
of what they say Christian values is.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm very zealot about it.
Well, and that's one of the quotes that I want to read, because there is this, when Matthew Harrison Brady and his wife show up. And oh, I think it's after Drummond shows up too. Henry Drummond, played by Spencer Tracy. Matthew Harrison Brady is played by Frederick March,
Yeah.
and then Gene Kelly plays the reporter who's been writing about this for the Chicago Tribune, I think.
Yeah, and the
And
Chicago paper is very, what is considered too ultra liberal in that time period.
right. And it's also too ultra liberal for the town. Yeah.
Right.
So the night, it's maybe, it might be right after they've chosen the jury. They have this like revival meeting. It's
Right.
summertime, so it's outside
Yeah.
in the evening, and it's really hot. And the Reverend Brown, who I get the impression there's only like one spiritual leader of the town,
I think so. I'm
and
not
it's
even sure what the population of that town is.
no, it's not very large.
Right.
And so he is one of these uh
Fire and brimstone.
fire and brimstone guys. Yeah. And he has been uh railing against that. We need to kind of burn Bertram Cates, is the guy, the teacher.
Yes.
And it's all this hateful language, and he's really revved up the
Crowd.
crowd.
Yeah.
And this is the one time when I kind of like Matthew Harrison Brady's character, because he stops him and he says, Reverend Brown, I know it's the great zeal of your faith which makes you utter this prayer. It's a prayer that, he's going to get damned. Bertram Cates is going to get
Richard
damned.
Kate. Yeah.
But it is possible to be overzealous, to destroy that which you hope to save, so that nothing is left but emptiness.
Emptiness.
Remember the wisdom of Solomon in the book of Proverbs. He that troubleth his own house shall inherit the wind. And then he asks for everyone to consider forgiveness for Bertram Cates.
Right.
And I think that is when he also talks to Rachel. Rachel talks to him about
Yeah, she goes to Brady and his
because she is Reverend Brown's
because
daughter.
she is the daughter of the Reverend and
Mhm.
engaged to the
Bertram
teacher,
Cates.
Bertram Cates.
So she's caught in the middle.
Oh yeah, she feels so much turmoil and played by a wonderful actress.
Oh, everyone's so good. Claude
The
Akins
cast is
plays,
pretty packed, really. It's a
yeah,
great cast.
Claude Akins plays
Claude
Reverend
Akins.
Brown.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And the judge,
Oh,
Harry Moore,
Henry Morgan.
Henry Morgan, man. I mean, but he plays it such a great downplay and just
Hmm.
it's all powerful, subtle,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I think the two men, the backstory is, Stanley Kramer really wanted them and the studios did not. They thought they were too old and too outdated and no one would want to see a
The
film.
young people wouldn't want to see them.
And then as soon as word got out around the studios and the lots, every actor wanted to gather and watch the filming of this amazing movie with these amazing actors. And so
Yeah,
they had to create stands. And then, at one point,
yeah.
a speech that Spencer
Spencer Tracy.
Tracy's character makes before Stanley Kramer could even say cut, everyone erupted in applause and they ruined the take. So they had to do it over again. And then he was like, okay, we got some ground rules we got to do because y'all are
Yeah.
disturbing my movie. So, and the other thing I really appreciate about Stanley Kramer is there's the scenes between um, Drummond and Brady, Spencer Tracy and Frederick March, he does not do any cuts. It's straight shots
Right.
to create that tension that
Yeah.
he knows was probably very palpable at that time in the
Yeah.
courtroom.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and uh, I thought this was interesting. I was reading the trivia, and Gene Kelly said, I learned so much about the techniques of acting from Frederick March.
yes,
But he said, but Spencer Tracy, you just had to watch him because
yeah,
he was like magic,
he was
magic in
magical,
a bottle.
right?
And I was thinking about that, and I thought, that's kind of how people think about Meryl Streep right now. It's like I remember seeing her on Inside the Actor Studio,
Yep,
and I can't remember the guy's name that was the host, but he asked her about her process, and she had this really frustrated look on her face, and she says,
yeah.
"Well, I don't know."
James Lipton. James Lipton was the host.
Oh, that's right.
He
And she
created
said,
Inside the Actor
"I don't
Studio
know
because
what my
it,
process is.
yeah, and she said that she goes, I just do some
I
research
take
and
I,
you know
I just look at each character
yeah.
and then I create something for that
Well,
character."
I think, there's a thing on TCM where Burt Reynolds is talking about doing a voiceover
Yes.
and talking about Spencer Tracy. And he was there watching that filming because he was filming some other TV show or something.
He was on a TV show, yeah.
And he got to take a little walk with Spencer Tracy and he's like, how do you do it? What do you do? And he goes, you know, don't act like you're acting.
Right.
Don't act.
Right.
And he was kind of like, oh,
Right.
you know, and I think that's Meryl Streep's process is just
Yeah.
being that person. And as I've seen other actors talk to Stanley Tucci's another one because he's such an amazing character actor, and he said the
Yeah.
same thing. He goes, I'm just that person.
Just listen. Well,
I'm just
yeah, I
listening.
mean, yeah, I think that they read about the character and they formulate
Right,
something
right,
about them, but then it's mostly the key is just listening to the other
right.
characters and actors talking to you as their characters and
Well,
then
isn't
responding.
that isn't that being in the moment?
Yeah.
I mean,
It
that's what we're
is.
doing right now.
Yeah.
You know, we're in the moment of all of this. And um,
Yeah.
that's what probably makes this film so amazing
Yeah.
is because you can't help but be in the moment when you're watching this film.
I know. I
And it's
know.
palpable
Yeah.
what the importance of this topic and the
Yes.
importance of the subject that is in all levels being brought up on only thinking one way,
Yes.
not not expanding your consciousness in every direction,
Right.
what that can do to you.
Yeah. Yes.
Just reading one thing and thinking it's the only word. And I know people are going to not like me saying this.
Right.
However, you know, I know people, oh, the Bible has everything it needs to teach me. And, you know, they are absolutely wonderful people. Don't get me wrong. But I think what this is really talking about is is so much more than the Bible never says I'm the only thing you're supposed to read and you're not supposed to read anything else. And if you
Right.
read anything else, you don't love God or Jesus.
Right.
I've never interpreted it that way.
Right.
Never for me.
Right.
And being raised with the foundation that we were raised with in our home, obviously our parents didn't interpret it that way either. You
Well,
know,
yeah. I mean, Dad was all about you got to ask questions,
you got to ask
question
questions.
everything.
Ask question
Yeah.
everything. It doesn't matter what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're watching. You know,
Right.
figure out how that makes you feel and
Well,
question it.
and when I was getting my degree in religious studies, man, if people took some of those classes that I took, they would be and a lot of students would take introduction to religion and their faith would be shaken. Or
Oh yeah,
they'd
yeah.
take the Bible classes, Old Testament, New Testament, and their faith would be shaken because they'd find out that all of the documents, especially in the New
New
Testament, but the
Testament,
Old Testament too, were written, 70, 80, 100
right?
years
Right.
after the events took place.
Right. And
And so,
Christianity didn't come into fruition until well 300 years or
uh,
so after Jesus died.
yeah, I mean,
And the
it was
thing that's so
slow,
crazy
it was
about
a slow
Christianity,
burn.
I mean, he wasn't even Christian. There was no such thing as Christian
Right, right.
when he existed.
Yeah,
So
right.
I think that can shake your foundation. But you know what? I mean, this is the way I view this movie, and I think that's is what Spencer Tracy's character and the ACLU with using this teacher as it let it get shook up.
Yeah, right.
Do that.
Yes.
Because expanding your own personal spiritual journey is what it's all about to grow in it
Yeah,
every day, every minute. And that's really what this whole thing, I think, is
yeah.
about.
Yeah, and to your point about the Bible being, some people think the Bible's the only book. There is a line, and I think we get to see it actually
We
in
do.
one of the scenes, where Spencer Tracy says, the Bible is a book. It is a good book, but it's not the only book.
Right.
And
And by the way, that quote, what he says there, is what got that movie banned in the South.
I know, I was just going to say that.
Oh, so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
no, that's good.
and that's so interesting, isn't it?
Hmm.
How, I mean, it kind of makes you go, is control really healthy?
I know.
Because, you want to control what people are going to hear and listen to, and
And
instead of
read
making
and
up their
think.
own minds
Yeah.
and their
Yeah.
own
Now there's that's,
consciousness.
yeah. Spencer Tracy's character, Henry Drummond, says on more than one occasion, this is a man who wants to think.
Yes.
And
Yes.
thinking is what is on trial here,
Oh,
not,
it's so beautifully said.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
then
then
when he goes through the steps of the thinking and how, you could even see some of the jury members and the people in the courtroom. This is another important point. When the trial first starts, the people in the courtroom are obviously one-sided.
yep,
And by the end of the whole thing, as things
yep,
are progressing, especially this whole thinking thing,
mm-hmm,
and then other stories come up that have brought Kate to this point as well,
mm-hmm,
uh, you can see the people in the courtroom shifting.
yes,
And Stanley
yes,
Kramer does such an amazing job because it's
yeah, showing that arc.
showing the divide.
Mhm.
One side of the courtroom is for strictly the Bible.
Mhm.
Then eventually everybody who's for the thinking
Mhm.
gets to the other side.
Yeah, now Bertram Kate's uh students, they meet
Oh yeah.
Henry Drummond, Spencer Tracy's character, right when he's arriving.
Right.
And they want to make sure that he's going to do right by them because they really like him. But he, at first, they think, "Oh no,"
Right.
he and Gene Kelly are like, "Oh no, what's going on here? Are they going to attack us?" But no, that's not it at all. So they're already thinking
Right.
because of their
Right.
teacher.
And that's what they love.
Mm-hmm.
When they one of the students gives a testimony, he goes, I just, he wasn't telling us that this is the only way to think. He was just telling us to think for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
to think beyond a certain point.
Yeah.
And and that's what's obviously for some time now being challenged nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are banning books and burning books and want the libraries to and school libraries to take certain books out and then,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some people who read some of these books and go, why is Maya Angelou, I know why the cage bird sings, what?
Even
Why
To Kill a Mockingbird.
to kill a mockingbird? What is being
Well,
why is that being banned?
last
And
week,
or the grapes of wrath.
I know. Yes. So last week I get this newsletter and it's about writing and publishing and stuff. And one of the little blurbs was about uh when they ban books, they have a list of banned books. Those books are the ones that people want to read.
Yes,
Live, there are requests
well,
from libraries, they
dad
buy
always
them.
right. Dad always taught us that too. What you bring attention to is not
Mhm.
going to do what you think it's going to do.
I know.
What you
Unintended
resist
consequences.
persists.
Right.
What you resist persists. And um but I also think that's the beauty of the universe. You
Yeah. Yeah.
know, trusting the process.
Right.
And I appreciate what the ACLU was doing. And
Mhm.
yes, it didn't turn out quite the way they thought it was going to, but the attention that it got
Mhm.
was astronomical.
Oh my gosh, it was nationwide and they even had radio in
Everybody
the
was paying attention. Every news station, news radio station,
Mhm.
they were all talking about it. And this is not in this trivia, but I looked up about the Snopestra, is the sales of the theory, his theory, it skyrocketed.
Yeah. Darwin's
Darwin's theory.
yeah.
They didn't get what they wanted,
No, they didn't. They didn't get it.
and
Yeah.
that's never in our history, ever in humankind has control, visceral hate ever worked. It
I
never
know.
works.
No.
What these people were doing, burning him in effigy,
Yeah.
and but singing, old time religion at the same time, you just kind of go, Okay.
Where's Christ
Do
in that?
you
Yeah.
not see the
Where's
error
Jesus
of
Christ?
your ways?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
if you want to exude love, you love.
Right. Exactly.
If you want to exude joy, you're joy.
So now I want to go, since the tone of the town was like that, I want to go back and talk about Reverend Brown
Please do.
because his character is very interesting. He, I
Yes.
don't think there's one line that he has where he is expressing his his true thoughts. It's all quotes from the Bible or
Yes.
quotes from some doctrine or something like that. And there's this beautiful scene which I wish I could have. It's heartbreaking scene, which I wish I had could have shown, where Rachel is talking to him and he's praying for her redemption and all, and she's trying to tell him, you know what, I was always afraid of you. I wanted,
Right. He couldn't
you
even
know,
hear her.
yeah,
Yeah.
when I was afraid, I wanted to come to you for comfort, but you weren't there. You
You
didn't
wouldn't even
comfort me.
comfort me.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just this
Yeah, no, he
heartbreaking.
is. He's a constant barrage of Bible quotes. A
Right.
constant.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Everything he does is Bible quotes. Or it's like, when she comes to him to talk to him and he's praying for her soul, he picks up her mother's picture. She would be so ashamed of you.
And you know what I think about that? The mother died because she couldn't live with him anymore.
I think the same thing. And I thought, isn't that interesting when we think we know how someone would feel or think?
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
put words into their mouth,
Mm-hmm.
into their actions that
Mm-hmm.
we are convinced are true.
Yeah.
And, that's a dangerous place to go.
Yeah.
And, let's bring it up because we're not going to be able to show it. But part of what they they don't bring up, but it's been able to get brought up because Kate's attorney, Spencer Tracy, they find out through a series of things that had happened some years ago because they're trying to make it a big deal that he doesn't go to church anymore.
Right.
There's only one church in town, so everybody knows if you're going to church or not. And
Oh no, we do
she
get
said,
to
well,
see
there
that.
was this incident of this young boy who died.
Yes, we do get to
And,
see that.
oh, well, that's an amazing scene. So,
Yes.
to find that out, and,
Right.
it was hard for her. This young woman is just torn.
She's the one that changes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
She
Well, and it's interesting to see how some of the townspeople actually do too, because I
mm-hmm.
think the things that get brought up in it are so powerful about,
Yeah.
and it is truly, this is about a man who's just thinking, and we don't want people to think.
Yeah. Right. I know.
Why don't we want people to think?
I know.
And I think that's a fear-based thing too.
Yeah.
There's really, people, they're just afraid of what? I'm not sure. I don't know.
I
Um,
know. Yeah.
why don't you want someone to think for themselves, or why don't you want someone?
Well,
I don't.
this is what I think about people who want to control other people. And I may be completely wrong. But from my experience, what I think is that people who want to control other people want to control all the stuff on the outside, but do not want to go inside and look at their own
Yes,
darkness.
it's about self-reflection. Absolutely.
That's what I think it is.
And then when you can't look
On
at yourself, you always blame others
yes,
for the
I
things
think
that
so.
go wrong.
Yes.
Oh, well, it's not my fault that went wrong. That's got to be blah, blah, blah's fault. Oh,
Right.
well, and if you're a thinker, well, then that's got to be your fault because you were thinking.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or
It
whatever.
sounds kind of
Or what
crazy, but that's what it is.
yeah, or whatever it is. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
the first scene is and there's some really interesting things I think about this scene. It's the first time that we see Henry Drummond and Matthew Brady, who actually are longtime friends. The real Matthew Harrison Brady was a politician who ran for president 3 times, and I wish I could remember his name. Um, and Henry Drummond's
Um,
character worked on his campaigns 2 times,
Two
two of
times.
those 3 times. So they're having a conversation, kind of reminiscing a little bit
With the
about
rocking chairs.
yeah,
Funny how two people can start from the same point, drift apart.
It's the nature of the life process.
There used to be a mutuality of understanding and admiration between us, Henry. Why is it, my old friend, that you've moved so far away from me?
No, all motion is relative, Matt. Maybe it's you who have moved away by standing still.
If progress means abandoning God, abandoning the faith of our fathers.
I saw a demonstration of that faith tonight. It's a pretty deadly instrument, I'd say. As long as the prerequisite for that shining paradise is ignorance, bigotry, and hate. I say the hell with it.
so one of the things I noticed this time, the 2 times I watched it, was their rocking chairs are going in opposite
Yeah, and Stanley Kramer did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Say that they are completely out of sync. Well, what I appreciate about the conversation is, you know, Frederick March's character is how did we start in the same place and end up someplace so completely different from each other?
Yeah.
No, it shows that he actually misses his friend,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
doesn't understand what happened. And then of course, he says it's maybe not that we moved apart, it's just that one of us is staying still, and it just means you haven't moved together. One's
Right.
staying still, one's moving forward.
Right.
And of course, he doesn't see himself that way because he says, well, I am not going to change if it doesn't involve the hand of God.
Right. Now,
I'm going to bring God into everything I do.
yeah. And I want
It's
to
so interesting to think that if you move forward, God doesn't go with you.
right, exactly. And I do think it's interesting that Matthew's wife and Henry have this really interesting
Right.
friendship
Yeah.
because they were friends when he was helping with the
His
campaigns.
Yeah.
And I got the names of the two real people. So Henry Drummond is Clarence Darrow, who was a very famous lawyer.
Yep.
And William Jennings Bryan is Matthew Harrison Brady. And
Yep.
and William Bryan ran 3 times for president, never won. So it's interesting to me that they did start off in the same place, but
Yeah.
I mean, as he says over and over and over again, you need to let people think.
Yeah.
And so Clarence Darrow is a thinking man.
Right. Well, and really what people they find a thing or a thought that in one moment they feel safe. So they stay there because they think that's always going to keep you secure and safe. That's how I look at it too. Why change? Because I'm safe here.
Right.
So if I learn something new, I won't be safe. Because, we've talked about this in the past too, how people are afraid of change.
Oh,
Change scares them.
yeah.
And they get all caught up in fear and anxiety and become angry, even become very angry with the change. Like the change is going to be something catastrophic,
Right.
when even Dad used to say to us all the time, I don't understand. Isn't that so weird how people think change is going to like kill them
Yeah.
or kill somebody or kill a thought that
Instead of bringing something better.
And so I always repeat this to people all the time, because Dad used to always say, well, the reason why people do certain things and stay within this is a guarantee.
Right.
You got a guarantee. They want a guarantee so bad.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, the only guarantee that you have is things are going to change.
Right.
So get used to it.
Right.
Make friends with it.
Because sometimes
I'm
change
so
brings
grateful for
things
that.
better.
Right.
It makes things better.
Progress and change. Look at it at the same thing,
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, this is their guarantee,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what religion has taught people is you're going to be guaranteed a place in heaven.
Right. Exactly.
A place at the side of God.
Right.
So, and that's a real mind, I mean, what a crazy thing that this shows so well is God loves you, God loves you, God loves you. But if you do something wrong, you're going to hell.
Right.
I mean, I no wonder why so many people grow up going, they're so confused because, well, there's a loving God, but then if I do something wrong, God is going to show his wrath. If you do something, and so that is a very, very good example in this movie. The burning of the effigy, seeing old time religion, which is not Jesus or any, it's God, yes, but it's not their Christianity. And how you can be so, they don't even realize how torn apart they are. Because I'm going to persecute you and I'll be saved.
Right.
And that comes out more in this movie and in
Mhm.
the courtroom. It's a real story.
Well, and the other thing about Matthew Harrison Brady, probably it was like that for William Jennings Bryan too. He was idolized. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, these people treat him like he's the second coming of Christ almost,
Oh yeah, they do.
Right.
And Henry Drummond in the actually this is the scene we're going to see actually did happen when Clarence Darrow called Bryant to the stand
Oh, yes.
for the defense.
Yes.
It really happened. It really
Yep,
happened
it
in real
really
life.
happened. Well, and it's interesting though to think about how he could run for president 3 times and not win. So who worshiped him? Not enough people to make him president.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which let's just get down to it too. His ego.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a lot of people have been taught or observe or self-examine enough to realize that when you get yourself stuck in a certain ideology and belief system, it really doesn't keep you safe. It gets you
Mm-mm.
into a place of where you're living in your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And Wayne Dyer always said something that really was profound to me. Ego is edging God out.
Mm-hmm.
Because your ego has you convinced that you've got it all under control,
Mm-hmm.
rather than trusting the process of your growth.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that's really the heart of this story is,
Yeah.
are we going to stay stuck or are we going to allow growth? Are we
Right.
going to seek
Allow
growth?
thinking. Allow thinking.
Yeah.
You
Allow
know?
yeah. Yeah, people who seek growth are being were being
Oh
persecuted.
my gosh. Well, I mean, Jesus
Yeah.
was.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
And that's the thing that I think Darrow brings up is, but not without saying exactly, is how people have turned into these persecutors when that's exactly what happened to Jesus. Why
Yes.
are you doing that?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that now. So would you be the ones that would be crucifying Jesus? I mean, it's kind of because,
Yeah.
he was all these things,
Yeah.
thinking, teaching people, moving forward,
Yeah.
and,
Right.
and this gets brought up in the courtroom, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
because
powerful too.
at one point uh Matthew says to Clarence or to Henry,
Henry, yeah.
does right have no meaning to you, sir?
Mm.
And this is what Henry says. Realizing that it might prejudice the case of my client, I must tell you that right has no meaning for me whatsoever. And there's this like in the courtroom. And then he says, but truth
Truth.
has a meaning. And when he says, but truth has a meaning, everybody kind of shuts up.
Yeah, you can
But
see.
truth
You can
has a
see the.
meaning
Yeah.
as a direction. And everybody kind of slows down, quiets down, and
Yeah.
oh, oh, truth
And
has a
this is
meaning.
why Darrow, in real life, and to this day, his writings, his
Mm-hmm.
court cases, is
Mm-hmm.
still taught in law
Mm-hmm.
school,
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Yeah, they
because
are.
he was very, I mean, ahead of his time.
He was.
He really was. And thank God for people like him. I'm
Yes.
so grateful for these people and I'm grateful that we had this process in our history.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I'm grateful for that because that it's on purpose.
Well, it's
It's on
like
purpose,
we
man.
take a couple of steps
Yeah,
forward and then we
yeah,
go back and then we take some more steps forward
yeah.
and then we kind of go back. So,
Well, and I think we go back because it's like we're still trying to find our footing.
yeah,
Oh, oh,
sure.
oh, okay. I got to figure out how that makes me feel.
Right.
Uh, uh,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's really, it's a really sad story at the same time as it's a progressive story, because you see how by the end of the film, one man even helped a community expand more and the
Mhm.
other man is now no longer their hero.
Right. Yeah, that's so sad for him.
It's devastating. It's
Yeah,
devastating.
it is. It is
It makes me
devastating.
cry every time I
I
watch it
know.
because,
I know.
and then his wife.
I know.
I wish we could show that one too, the conversation
With her and
after. We'll talk
Rachel.
about it when we show that scene, what happens later after
Yes.
they have to recover. Um,
Yeah.
the conversation that the two women have.
Women have. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because well, okay, we'll see her role, Matt's wife's what's her name? Sarah, that's her
Sarah,
name.
she's yeah.
And
Oh,
she's the one who has to stop him in the scene that we're gonna
yeah,
see next.
yes.
So yeah,
But I think she's the only one that could.
oh, yes, definitely. Now we have to set up the scene that we're going to see next. Rachel is totally distraught about her. She's torn between her father and Bertram Cates.
Right.
And she's in love with Cates. She doesn't want to give him up, but he says to her, "You've got to decide. It's our house or your father's
Father's
church."
house. Yes. Yes.
And uh so she's this torn, and she talks to in confidence to Sarah and Matthew about
Yes.
why Bert left the church. And I call this next scene the betrayal, because
Yeah.
Matt calls her to the stand
Yeah. And the
and
actress's name
reveals,
is Donna Anderson. And she didn't do a whole lot of big work after this.
which she is really
And
great.
she so could have.
Yeah.
But she mostly played smaller roles and did TV work. And it could have been by choice, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the choice that Stanley Kramer made to put this woman in this role, the one thing that it is about casting directors and directors to cast movies, when we talk about these films, the work that they did to do that was, oh my God.
I know, and it's a
She
good thing.
wasn't well known.
No,
You know?
but I'm glad that the Oscar, whoever decides what categories the Oscars are going to have,
Yes.
finally included casting directors, because
Right.
their job
Because that's
is
hard work, man.
vital.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I've
Because if
had to
you don't get it
cast.
right, the movie doesn't work.
Oh, right. Or the play doesn't work.
The play doesn't work, or the script
Yeah.
doesn't even work because they don't know how to deliver it.
Right,
So
exactly.
you have
Because
to do the
I've been
same
in
here.
plays where somebody looked great in auditions, and then we get to the,
Oh, yeah.
it's like they're not very good. And
Well,
everybody else kind of has to hold them up. Yeah.
and so once again, what Stanley Kramer and the casting director did for this movie,
Yeah.
even the smaller roles, and this young woman's powerful performance.
And I was just weeping when I was picking out the scene. I'm
Oh my
watching it
gosh. I
again.
mean,
It's like she's so devastated, and it's
she's
horrible.
and the thing is, she starts out where she's very delicate,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's not.
Right. Yeah, at the
She
beginning of the
finds
movie,
her
she's
strength through this process.
yeah, she's
So
the one that changes the mood.
it's not just the story of thinking. It's not just the
Mm-mm.
trial of thinking.
Mm-mm.
It's so many of their stories because even the teacher has to think about his process.
Right.
But we have to be careful how many scenes we show because we can't do too many,
Yeah.
Because in reality, I mean, just watch the movie.
Yes.
There
Go
isn't,
watch the
once
movie.
again, it's the writing, the script
Yeah.
is so impeccable.
Yeah. And the playwright, because if this was a play first, he
Right.
wrote the screenplay too.
He did write the screenplay, yes.
So
And he did an amazing job.
he did. So let's watch the scene where poor Rachel gets called to the stand. She's told all this confidential information to Sarah and Matt. And I think the look on Sarah's face is even like, "What are you doing?"
Now, my dear, I just want you to repeat some of the things you told me last night.
Please, Mr. Brady.
Well, Rachel, you said you wanted people here to understand, didn't you, my dear?
Yes.
Now, then, just answer my question. Now, Miss Brown, you are an old friend of the defendant, Bertram Cates.
We're engaged to be married.
Do you and Mr. Cates attend the same church?
Yes, we did.
Do you now?
What?
Attend the same church.
No.
Did Mr. Cates leave the church?
No, not really. Not the spirit of it.
But the body of it, correct? Mr. Cates left the church you and he once attended together.
Yes.
Why?
Because of the Stebbins boy.
The Stebbins boy. Would you tell us about that, please?
It was 2 summers ago. The little Stebbins boy was 13 years old. He was one of Bert's students. He lived right next door to the boarding house, and he used to come over and look through Bert's microscope. Bert said the boy had a bright mind, and he might even be a scientist when he grew up.
Yes?
He went to the river with the other boys and went swimming. He got a cramp and drowned.
Go on.
At the funeral, Paul Priest said Tommy didn't die in a state of grace because his father wouldn't allow him to be baptized.
Tell him what your father really said. That Tommy's soul was damned, riding in hellfire.
Kate, you sinner!
Religion's supposed to comfort people, not frighten them to death.
We will have order, please. Now sit down, Bert.
Don't you see? Bert thought it wasn't fair that a little child couldn't go to heaven. It wasn't God he abandoned, only the church.
Tell us some more. What did he say about the holy state of matrimony? Did he compare it to the breeding of animals?
Objection!
Well, you want to help him, don't you? You want the good people of this town to see what happened to his brain so they can help him bring him back to his senses, don't you? Come on, tell it. Tell it all. Tell it. Tell it. Tell it.
No!
Under the circumstances, I believe the witness should be excused.
So you're right. Say that again.
During this whole process, you're also, it's such great framing because you've got the judge, his
Yeah.
face in between, Matthew, Brady, and
And
this
Rachel.
young woman, Rachel. And you see at first he's okay with the questioning until it gets to a certain point where he's harassing her and berating her.
Yeah.
Brady is.
Yeah.
And then at one point, the judge is taking his glasses off after, Matthew Brady has been told to stop by his wife, and then the whole energy of the courtroom has changed.
Right. Exactly.
They realize, and and I do honor that, Drummond wants to continue to question her. And, Kate's is like, no, just let her go. Because she's so, oh my gosh, she's just sobbing.
Yeah. It
Because
just makes
she
me
feels that
cry
she
when I
has-
watch that scene.
She's betrayed the man that she loves over what I think, that Brady thinks is going to make him look bad. And maybe initially it may, but him questioning what, like what he says, religion is supposed to comfort people,
Mm-hmm.
not make them frightened and afraid.
Right.
And that's a real statement.
Yeah.
And when you get away from that, that's not love. That's not,
No.
it's not
Well-
growth. It's being frozen in fear.
Well, and Matthew doing that to her,
Yeah.
he sees it as his way to win the case.
He's going to win it. Yeah.
But it's like he's completely oblivious
Yeah.
to what he is doing to her.
Well, and what he's doing to her and what he's doing to religion,
Right. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
in his mind, religion is righteous.
Right.
And the word righteous is a pretty kind of ugly word when you really put it in some of the terms that he was and how he was treating her.
Yeah.
Because he wanted it to make it look sinful that Kate's, after that whole process of that young boy drowning and her father saying he didn't die
In grace.
saved,
Yeah.
is, and like, well, what is God and where is God and how does God play a role in this? If if you can't live your pure life and be go to heaven,
Mhm.
because of how your parents might feel or perceived a feeling.
Mhm.
And I think the one thing that this does put into question too is it's part of the thinking process is, um does God reside out here
Right.
and just up here,
Yeah,
or does God reside in here?
exactly.
And religion, a lot of religion still to this day is God's out there and
Exactly.
not really attainable.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because that's what this really points out in this work, how the religions kind of stayed still in that in
Mm.
so many areas,
Right.
that
Yeah.
God is out there and not in here. And he
Yeah.
questioned that, and they
Well, on a
Brady wants to
different
make it look like it was a horrible question to ask.
yeah, but this is the other thing. On a different level that he is completely unaware of
Yeah,
is he just destroyed his own image in the
yeah,
minds of the people in the courtroom
he did. He he
because he betrayed her
he betrayed a
trust.
young woman, and she's even saying it.
Hmm.
This was personal. This was between you and I. We weren't. I'm not supposed to be here. Why am I
Hmm.
here? I confided in you.
And there are little bits where we see her father's face.
Yes, yes. Especially when it comes to when they talk about what he says that the little boy doesn't die in grace.
Hmm.
It doesn't, and that's he's kind of like,
And
mm,
Bert's response to that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I know, and even the courtroom knows that those conversations that she and Bert had after that were between the two of them,
right. Yeah,
and she confided because she thought she had a safe place to tell her struggle.
right. Exactly. And would get support and advice.
Hey, a total spiritual, emotional, because she too saw him as a leader of a spiritual sort
Right.
that could be there for her.
Yeah.
And he
Which
wasn't.
which now we can talk a little bit about the conversation which we don't get to see between Sarah and Rachel after if it's a couple it
Yes.
might be a day or two
It is
after.
because Rachel goes into hiding. She's in bed trying to
Well,
recover.
the doctor gave her a
I
tranquilizer
mean,
to
she is
make her
so traumatized. I
yeah,
mean, she essentially has a nervous breakdown
on the
on the
stand.
stand. She's
Yeah.
having a nervous breakdown
Yeah.
because of the betrayal being so enormous.
Yeah.
And how important it was for her to feel safe, because you know what, she never felt safe. She tries to
Never.
tell her own father she doesn't feel safe, you
Right.
know and then the only person she does feel safe with is on trial.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So
So
who
when
is she
she
going
goes and confronts Sarah, Sarah's the one who comes out because she goes to their hotel room
yeah,
and they have this really interesting conversation. And of course, Rachel flips and thinks that now Matt's evil.
yeah,
And Sarah, who is older, wiser, she's probably been through lots of ups and
lived
downs
with
with
the man for
Matt.
years. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, she tries to help her see that she did it to herself in a way, and that yes, she
well,
doesn't know why her husband did what he did, and it
right,
wasn't good. But you have to decide. Again, she's being challenged.
again, right,
You have to decide. You have to decide who you believe in, what you believe in. Do you
and
believe
not
in
blame someone else.
exactly,
Don't
exactly,
blame him for your process.
right,
Essentially is
exactly,
what those, and it really does flip Rachel. All It's not even just flipping, it just wakes her up.
right.
She
Mm-hmm.
comes out of this stupor. But why wouldn't she be in this place of blaming someone else? It's how she was raised.
Exactly.
Your
But
lot in life, if you don't believe in God, then you're blah blah blah. And if this doesn't work out the way it's because it's someone else's fault.
right,
That's narcissistic.
it is.
Really.
But
of course, in this time period, they didn't know anything about narcissism, but it's very narcissistic
right,
to create a turmoil but blame someone else for it.
exactly.
And Sarah
Right.
is very grounded.
She is. And after Rachel kind of calms down and realizes that she has to go think about what Sarah said,
Right.
well, actually, Matt comes out before Rachel leaves. But then she and Matt have this conversation, and he says, I want to build a monument to God. And
Right.
she says, you can't build monuments for other people because then it's your monument and they can tear it down.
Be
You
torn
have
down.
to you
It's that
have to
whole
let
pedestal thing. You put someone
yeah,
on a pedestal, they
yeah.
fall off easily.
And you've got to let them build their own monument.
Right.
And
Right.
she should have been the one running for president, I'm telling you.
Oh my gosh, no kidding.
Well, and
Well, and the thing is that's so powerful.
earlier on, Henry says to her, I don't think Matt would have made a good president.
Nope.
But I would have voted, but if he was king, I would have voted for him just to have you be queen.
Just to have you be queen. Right.
Because, yeah. So
Because
they have the.
you're a great partner. You are a great
No,
partner to him.
yeah.
And the thing about Sarah that makes her so great too is she loves him
Yes.
with all of the mistakes he makes. And
Mm-hmm.
all of this, she loves him no matter. That is unconditional love.
Yes.
She does not love him with expectations. She does
Mm-mm.
not love him on conditions. She
Right.
just loves.
She just
And
loves
that's
him.
really kind of what she says to Rachel.
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't expect him to be perfect, but I love him.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful lesson in this story as well.
It is. Yeah. And she's the wise one. She,
Oh,
well, of course, Henry is too, but
Henry's pretty
in that
wise.
relationship, she's the wise one.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, we don't know if that conversation really happened because it's not part of the courtroom,
Right.
documentation, but
Right.
um it would be plausible that it would have.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I didn't get to look up yet is do I do know that this teacher eventually gets hired when all this court thing is over with. A university in Chicago hires him for to teach geology, and then he becomes this
Yeah.
enormous.
Well,
That's
he goes on and gets more education and then he gets,
right.
yeah.
Right.
Right. Which
They
I
say
think is
they pay for his tuition. They pay
education.
for him to go to college because they
Mm-hmm.
know that he would be an amazing instructor.
Yes.
And this is the other thing that's really important in this too. Earlier on, um, you know, uh, uh, um, gosh, Drummond brings in like these 4 or 5 experts in their
Right.
field,
Right.
and they're also religious.
Right.
They are people who are ministers, plus they have these degrees in
Right.
archaeology, anthropology,
So
geology, blah blah blah,
geology, yeah.
all this stuff, and
Yes.
none of them are allowed to testify.
No. So that brings us to the next part because I love this. The they've ruled out all of his witnesses,
Yes.
and here we go with Gene Kelly's his character's name is Hornbeck.
Hornbeck.
He and they're out. The people are out in the streets singing and burning the effigies and all that stuff. And he says, "Well, what are you going to do now? He's ruled out all your people. Let's have a drink." And they said, all you've got left is the Bible. And he throws it to Drummond, who's laying, because they share a room. He's laying on his bed, and the look on Spencer Tracy's face as he realizes, oh, this is how I can.
This is how I
This is
get it.
This is how I can. He's probably still going to be found guilty, but it's going to make people think if I do it this way.
And that is really his goal, is to show the hypocrisy of this
Right.
whole process.
Yes.
And he does
Yes.
an amazing job.
Yes.
Because
So
he's a thinking man.
that's right.
His process is constantly moving forward.
Yeah. So
And who better to
him-
play that than Spencer Tracy?
I know. So this is part of actual real testimony.
Right.
It was true that Clarence Darrow did call Brian to the stand.
Yes.
And one thing I read about it, though, is it didn't take place in the courtroom because it was so hot that it took place outside. They moved the whole court proceedings outside.
Right.
So
But they had to make it more congested for the film.
well, yeah, right. So we're going to see the scene, and it's not the whole entire examination by Drummond and
Well,
to
I think I read somewhere the examination was quite extensive. Like,
yeah,
like I think they said more than 45 minutes or something. It was like
it was really long.
really long.
And it's about 10 minutes, I think, in the movie,
Yeah.
or maybe a little bit longer. But I just did the last part of it, starting with when he brings the rock that has the fossil in it. That's where I started it.
So beautiful.
So because it's where
Brady.
Brady starts to break down.
Yeah, because he starts quoting this particular religious scholar who talks about the timeline of the creation of the
which
Earth.
is so ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Okay, so let's watch that.
How old do you think this rock is?
I am more interested in the Rock of Ages than I am in the age of rocks.
Dr. Page of Overland College tells me this rock is at least 10 million years old.
Well, Colonel Drummond, you managed to sneak in some of that scientific testimony after all. But your professor's a little mixed up on his dates. That rock is not more than 6,000 years old.
How do you know?
A fine biblical scholar, Bishop Usher, has determined for us the exact date and hour of the creation. It occurred in the year 4004 BC.
Well, that's Bishop Usher's opinion.
It's not an opinion, it's a literal fact, which the good bishop arrived at through careful computation of the ages of the prophets as set down in the Old Testament. In fact, he determined that the Lord began the creation on the 23rd of October, 4004 BC at 9 a.m.
At Eastern Standard Time? Or Rocky Mountain Time? It wasn't daylight saving time, was it? Because the Lord didn't make the sun until the fourth day.
That is correct.
That first day, well, what do you think? It was 24 hours long?
The Bible says it was a day.
Well, there was no sun. How do you know how long it was?
The Bible says it was a day.
Well, was it a normal day, a literal day, 24-hour day?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I do not think about things I do not think about.
Do you ever think about things that you do think about? Isn't it possible that it could have been 25 hours? There's no way to measure it, no way to tell. Could it have been 25 hours?
It's possible.
Then you interpret that the first day is recorded in the book of Genesis could have been a day of indeterminate length.
I mean to state that it is not necessarily a 24-hour day.
It could have been 30 hours. Could have been a week. Could have been a month. Could have been a year. Could have been 100 years. Or it could have been 10 million years.
I protest. This is not only irrelevant, immaterial, it is illegal. I demand to know the purpose of Mr. Drummond's examination. What's he trying to do?
I'll tell you what he's trying to do. He wants to destroy everybody's belief in the Bible and in God.
That's not true, and you know it. The Bible is a book. It's a good book, but it is not the only book. The way of things. Is that the way of things? God tells Brady what is good. To be against Brady is to be against God.
Oh! Each man is a free agent.
Then what is Bertram Cates doing in the Hillsborough jail?
I love where I paused it, where the one gentleman who was totally, Matthew Brady, and he was like at the forefront. You're our prophet, you're this. And you can see the look on his face. He's just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Because once he's done examining him, cross-examining him, Brady can't stop talking.
Right.
He's becomes this, rage-filled, just listen to my words, because I think he must have at some level realized he was losing people.
Mm-hmm.
And what Drummond says throughout that last part of the examination, the cross examination, is, "Oh, so you're the prophet."
Right.
And really reflects back to the community how they were putting him on this pedestal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also think that he's reflecting to Matthew that he has fallen into the trap of
Yes.
he loves the adulation. He loves that
Yeah.
people look to
He
him
loves to
for
be looked up to.
yes, and it's all ego driven
Yep.
now.
Ego driven. Doesn't say those words, but that's absolutely what it is. It's not
Yeah,
driven from real teaching of faith.
right,
It's follow me and I will lead you to God
right.
and to the
Instead, yeah,
to the fearless,
yeah, and Sarah tried to tell him that that's not good. You have to
Right.
let people find their own way.
Right.
She tried to tell him that, but he didn't listen.
He did.
He didn't
Well,
listen.
I think and we do know that what happens to Brady towards the end of the film, it really did happen. He died pretty tragically.
Yeah, it was.
His health
It
was
wasn't in the courtroom.
no,
It was like 6
but
days after the trial.
because I guess he did collapse, but then
Yeah,
took him a bit because
yeah,
he. But I mean, they make it very clear throughout the whole film. The man never stops eating,
I know.
and he's not eating things
That
that
are
are
good for him. Yeah,
and he loves to eat with all these people surrounding him at the table and just ha 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 and oh my god, he just loves to be the center of attention.
yes,
And maybe some of that came from running for president 3 times and
maybe.
you don't win and
Yeah,
you're hoping for people to hear you.
yeah.
And
And I
I mean,
always
I
think
hate to say it this way, but you believe your own BS.
right.
you
Yeah,
know
he likes to hear himself talk.
yeah,
And I think
yeah.
it's interesting that we never see Sarah eating with him.
No, that's so true. Right.
Because she comes into
Well,
early on, she comes into the dining room and Harry flags her down and she comes and sits. She
yeah, she
doesn't
goes
eat
and sits with
anything,
him.
but
Yeah. She goes
she
and
just
sits
talk
with Drummond and not her own husband. Right.
right.
Well, and I think it whether or not this really happens, I don't know, but it's the deterioration of the relationship in the man
Maybe.
and the idea
Yeah.
what everyone thought they were fighting for.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all metaphorical. But in reality, it really happened.
Yeah.
You know, he this whole courtroom thing, and like I said, it was a really long cross-examination,
It was.
considering what examinations normally are.
Yeah.
Um,
Or this was just an examination because he was bringing him in as the
like a
witness.
witness. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was an examination, and so that's just
Yeah.
go again. Oh no, I am more than happy to be, the witness of the prophet. I mean, he really, really believed what everybody believed about him.
Yes.
And
It's so sad.
it is sad because it still happens.
Yeah.
It has absolutely nothing to do with being a leader that's a healthy leader.
I know. It is so sad. It was
You know,
sad.
the breakdown that happens is because he's got this wife, I think, that would really like him to be self-examining and she her despair and sadness to watch this whole thing happen to her husband is really, really heartbreaking.
I know it is. Well, and I'm thinking that maybe she didn't really this was a turning point in their marriage too
Yes. Yes.
because she didn't maybe she didn't acknowledge to herself or she didn't see that the way that it presented itself here.
Yes.
That
Yes.
he thought that he knew everything about the Bible and that he knew everything about being holy
And he was a direct line from God.
yeah. Yeah.
God speaks to me.
Yeah. And I think maybe when he betrayed Rachel on the stand, that's when she started to see that something, oh, I mean, maybe it happened before that. I don't know. But the way it is in the story, that's when she begins to see that he has changed.
Yeah.
And it's not good. What's going on is not good.
Well,
Right. And after the jury comes back with their verdict and everything, and he's only been fined
$100.
$100, which it was kind of a lot then, but it's, of course, Brady wanted it to be thousands of dollars. Uh, he and the court is adjourned. He wants to make this statement, and he's
He's
got
got
all
a
these
speech he wants to make.
and that's when he collapses.
Yeah.
And
And there is to hear the verdict, Chicago, a news station comes.
WGN, yeah,
WGN comes in
with the
got
radio.
the big microphone, and they're going to report what the verdict is because nationwide everyone wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sees that. Brady sees that as his opportunity for the world to hear him,
Right.
and he wants to utilize it.
Yeah.
But right before his very eyes, as soon as the verdict is told, and they just, without even thinking of him, because he's not important anymore.
And there's all this
take
noise in the
microphone away, and
courtroom.
everything is swept away, and he wants to no, I have things I have to say. And
Nobody's
also,
listening to
I
him.
don't even think Brady wanted him to be fined. He wanted to see him imprisoned.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
yeah.
really thought his crime was enough to go to prison for.
Yes. Yeah.
To be made example of.
But
Which, really, if you think about it, if he had gone to prison, and this is what the conversation that happens just before the verdict comes out, is a court appointed, I'm not sure what he is, a bailiff or whoever, comes to the judge and said, listen, this is getting a lot of attention.
He's the
We
mayor
gotta
of the town.
this whole thing, everybody across the country and even the world is listening to this.
It's the mayor of the town who says
Oh, is it the mayor? And he
Mhm.
says, we got to be careful what this
Yeah.
is going to make us look like.
Mm-hmm.
Because we want to be appealing too. And of course, the judge, I think he does a really great process.
Mm-hmm.
Does this middle ground
Mm-hmm.
of, okay, you're found guilty, but it's not going to be this super harsh punishment. Can't make us look like we're so far backwards that we're going to put you in prison.
Right.
Because really, putting him in prison would have made him a martyr.
That's right. Well, and not only that, but putting him in prison is it's gonna continue the negative.
Yes. And would it really be good for religion?
Or the town. So we forgot to talk about the ending of Inherit the Wind. So it's kind of a good thing that our video got challenged. So we're changing it a little bit. But let's talk about the end. After Matthew Brady dies, and it's Hornbeck and Henry Drummond in the courtroom talking about what happened.
And they found out how he died.
Right. And Hornbeck is
he's very cynical.
He's very cynical throughout the whole movie, but he's really cynical now about, the national tear duct. That's what he calls him.
National tear duct. Yep.
And he's just really just ragging on him. And I love when Henry says,
I think what he wants to do, Hornbeck, within his own cynical way, he thinks if he criticizes you enough, it's going to turn people against you, which is not healthy.
Right.
It's not a healthy attitude to have.
But I love it when Henry defends Matt and says, a giant once lived in that body.
Right.
And it's just that he looked for God too far away and too high up.
Yeah.
He didn't realize that God's inside you,
Right.
And then of course Hornbeck starts giving Henry a hard time.
Yeah, he's like, what? How dare you say those things, Because I think he thinks you're supposed to have an enemy.
Right.
If you don't think the same, you're enemies.
Right. I think you're right. Well, maybe it's because that might be partly what makes him a good journalist, but it might be because he's a journalist
Yeah.
and he's seen all this horrible stuff going on in the
Yeah,
world.
I think so too. Yeah.
But that's when he comes circles back around to that quote that Matt quotes during the revival meeting thing about he who troubleth his own house shall inherit the wind. Henry finishes the quote and he's going, "You hypocrite, you're an atheist, you
Yeah.
know, and you know the Bible." And
But
that's
I think what Henry Drummond, the point he makes is studying everything.
yes,
So,
exactly.
I mean, really, he basically says, you have to find what your truth is.
Right, yeah. And I love when he says, "Do you believe in anything?"
Yeah, he's like, what, where are you? Yeah, what
Yeah,
do you believe in?
right. And then
You pontificate this
yeah,
and say that, he's not, I think he sees, though, the thing I like about how, of course, Spencer Tracy plays everything perfectly. But
yeah,
I think you really gather that he sees him.
yes.
Henry Drummond sees behind the cynicism
That
and
he's
what that means.
lonely.
That he's a lonely person.
Yeah.
And that he has created what he thinks is a safe place and a safe life for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he says it, he tells him it's not. And then of course,
Right.
he says you're gonna be alone. You're
Right.
gonna die alone.
Right.
No one's gonna come to your funeral.
Right. And then I love what Gene
Yeah,
Kelly
Gene
says,
Kelly said.
or Hornbeck says.
Hornbeck says, yeah.
You'll come. You're the type.
You're the man that will come. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like basically he understands him as well.
Right.
Hornbeck sees Drummond as the man who cares about everyone,
Right.
no matter what.
Yeah. And then he leaves, and the ending I really love because he picks up the Bible, he picks up the Darwin,
Yeah.
and he puts them together and just kind of smiles and puts them under his arm.
Yeah.
And then the ending song is
Yes.
completely different.
Completely different.
It's I was singing it to myself earlier today. It's and Leslie Uggam sings both songs.
She does. Which very
her
interesting.
Her voice is so gorgeous. It's
Battle Hymn of the Republic.
That's right. Battle Hymn of the Republic. Yeah, which has a completely different feeling than Give Me That Old Time Religion. So that's a really nice ending.
Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the thing that they try to make clear in this movie too, and we didn't say it, is how it transforms everyone. This trial.
Mm-hmm.
It really causes everyone who's willing to openly question what it was all about, and they question it.
And some people are forced to question.
Yeah.
Because their hero has fallen from grace.
Right. Right.
So that's sad. But good. Good and
Well,
sad.
I mean, self-examination is always important.
Yes.
That's what helps us move forward and grow and find peace.
Right. Exactly. So I love that. Yeah.
Right. Because, the thing that's really important is here we talking this 100 years ago. And how many of these ideas of this type of religion and this ideology is still trying to hang on.
Oh.
And this is where I think step by step, more and more people are waking up to that.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things are lessons.
Right.
You have to learn from that. We're having some of this stuff happen going right now because we have lessons to learn.
Oh, definitely.
And if we don't learn these lessons of love and inclusion and empathy and compassion, and that's the way to live, to make sure that everybody wins and that there's enough to go around and we do not have lack, if we don't, it's going to keep visiting us. It's going to keep coming back. And the thing that's really making the difference now in all of this is social media.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't have social media back then.
Right.
Haven't had social media has really become, even in just these past, I mean, I think about when I was in high school, we didn't have personal cell phones.
No.
If you had a cell phone, it was in your car, or when you started having the flip ones that you could carry around with the little antenna, you were rich. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've progressed to, and the social media stuff that no one ever imagined would become such a big deal, it is a big deal.
Yes.
And that's how we are, you know, fortunate, unfortunate, a lot of people are communicating now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And learning. It's not
Right.
you can take away all the books that you want, but you're going to take away social media is not really going to be a thing.
Well, and the other thing is that you can, on social media, you can get access to all the stuff that people are
All
trying to
sorts
get
of
you
stuff.
not to. Yeah, it's all available
It's all
someplace.
available, right? And so that's the difference between 1925 and 2025.
Yeah.
This is a whole different animal now.
Yeah, it is.
And I do think I'm going to risk to say the word, the evolution of human nature and humans in general, and the consciousness of our collective consciousness of love, we're getting it.
Myself.
Well, and that's the conversation that they have with Rachel, and this is prior to her being on the stand, that Spencer Tracy says to her and to Kate's is, so do you want to conform to
Mm-hmm.
fit in so you can be popular? And
Mhm.
you think, he talks about the illusion of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
if you conform, you're good.
Right.
Do exactly what they tell you to do to fit in this little area of this box, so that not only, they're going to take your really secure ideas away from you so that
Mm-hmm.
you can fit in and be
Yeah.
safe. So is that what you really want? Because that's
Yeah.
what you're telling me you might want. And you can see Kate's go, no, that's not what I want. That's not what I want.
Well, she has not thought that through until this
No, but you
thing
have to
happens.
have those conversations.
Yes.
I
Yes.
and her awakening to herself had to be this brutal
Mm-hmm.
for her to find her footing.
Yes.
And I think that
Yeah.
is human nature.
Yeah. And I love that finally, in the end, she leaves her father.
Yeah, she's like, I'm gone. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I've realized this is not the way I want to live. I don't want to even be in this community.
Yeah. In fact, I think they do move away. Oh, well, I'm not sure the real guy, I'm not sure ever got
I don't
married,
even know if
but
yeah,
she
right,
might be a fictional character. But yeah, I would imagine that
right.
they move away.
Well, and the journey of these people who are so assured. The other thing I think this brings up too is, are we ever supposed to be 100% sure?
I know, really.
I'm not sure we're supposed to. That's why you ask questions. That's why you think.
Right. And I'm not sure I would feel comfortable being completely absolute.
I'm not sure I would either.
I think I feel secure in the fact that I know that I'm going to be learning things all the time.
Right. Which is
It's
change.
not going to be, I get to a place where I know it all. I
Well,
know that I don't know it all, and that's kind of exciting because I get to keep
I mean,
learning.
I can't remember. And Dad used to say it all the time. The more I learn, the more I know nothing at all.
Right, exactly.
And I like that.
I like that too. I do too. Well, I'm sorry, but I think we need to wrap this
I
up.
think we do need to wrap up.
So, our next movie it's in May. It's not going to be on Memorial Day or close, but it's The Best Years of Our Lives. And it is a groundbreaking movie. So, if you want to go watch it before we have our
Because it's a
discussion about
perfect
it.
one to show for that.
And it's a
Yes.
multiple Oscar winner. It has so many great people in it.
Yeah.
Frederick March
Frederick March
is in it.
his best. Oh my gosh. But everybody in it is at their best.
Oh yes,
It is
yes.
definitely, and the real thing is, Betty Davis said it's the most perfect film she ever saw. I mean,
Yes.
we're gonna have fun
Yeah.
talking about it.
We are. So go watch that movie and
Please watch this film.
subscribe to our channel, like it,
Yes, subscribe,
share it, and make comments because we love talking about movies, as you can tell.
As you
Okay.
know.
Until next time, bye.
Bye.